Our images of a dystopian future are always based on our fears of the past. So when you look at The Handmaid's Tale, they drew on a lot of historic fashion. So why did they do that? So one of the reasons is it's really a smart idea if you're creating a new world to build on a world that the viewers will already understand. It means that they don't have to explain everything. If you look at somebody who has this hat, you think, oh, they're maybe from a convent because nuns historically might have worn this kind of coronet, based slightly on our misunderstanding of the past. Now, I will say that yes, women historically in most societies had fewer affordances than men did. They had often a lot more rules on what they could do. But to go back to this painting that the commenter was saying reminded them of the Handmaid's Tale, remember, this woman in this is changing money. She is working a job. Women often had, for example, lots of responsibilities in the family business. They obviously had home responsibilities that the men did not, but they also had a lot of soft power often. So even if they couldn't, say, have a house outright unless they were a widow, they still had a lot of sway in the family. So when we look at these dystopian futures, remember, these dystopian futures are only pulling out our fear of the past. The past did have problems, but they're pulling it out in a non-nuanced way. And to go back to that idea of why are they all sort of dressed like nuns, it actually is another one of those misunderstandings of history. So the many of the habits that nuns wore were also things that secular women wore. So for a lot of the Renaissance, for example, many women wore a wimple to cover their neck and their head. And it was certainly a show of how modest they were. But for secular women, it was also a show of how wealthy they were, right? This is white cloth. That means that they have someone to help them keep it white. It's very expensive. And then a lot of the hats would be a sort of show of wealth, right? Like you're wearing all of this expensive cloth on your head, and capes sometimes were similarly that you had that wealth. To us, they often look just like a dour, covered up woman, but it was often a flex, which goes back to my original point. We look at history as if it's always very negative, but often that is our bias towards history, and then we pull that forward to our dystopian art.